Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the holiday season like I am because it's giving me some more free time. Today I want to take a quick look at gods and what makes them special. Looking back in time, we find that different religions came and went along with all their gods. If we look at how many gods there were, we are inundated with different cultures and civilizations who all came up with their gods on all continents and all regions. So out of the approximately, 200 gods that are active today, or the round about 300,000 that ever existed, today's believer takes only one as their favorite god, while being a rejectionist of all others. Actually, wrong vocabulary, as you cannot reject something that does not exist, so they should at least call themselves atheist but one. Looking at the timeline of the 12 big religions, we see that they all came about during the last 3,000 or 4,000 years, starting with Hinduism, where people started interaction between groups and then pondering their origins. What is interesting is that tribes or groups that did not have this interaction, or others that locked themselves away, did not develop. So for development to happen, interaction is required, which is possibly the reason why our development has been speeding up since communications and traveling resulted in increased interaction and thus a thrust in development. The Aboriginal Binahan people of Brazil have no numbers, no leaders and no gods. They also never developed any higher system for society or technology and are the happiest and most peaceful people I have ever heard about. Going a little deeper into the timeline, we see that when mankind started understanding nature better, the traditional gods within some societies were retired. But as the last question, the origin of the universe and species, was still unanswered, a single one was kept alive in books and in personification. What all the 300,000 gods have in common is that they are insanely jealous, strict, vicious, punitive, and massive control freaks. They're all claiming to be the only god and the one god, all of them. They also claim they created the universe and particularly planet Earth. And all are totally obsessed with what we do when we are how we were born, naked. Different people have created different creation myths, which all boil down to one thing: God did it. Period. On this timeline, we see religions appear and disappear. Some develop further and coexist, or are in fierce competition with each other, all screaming, "By me." Even when we get to more recent times, we see people like Smith and Hubbard take advantage of gullible and naive believers to threaten them with eternal punishment and torture. They also have their unique or not so unique creation myths, fables and stories. So let's go and look at some of these creation stories and see whether they really are that easy to swallow and accept. Starting off with the Aborigines in Australia, we see it comes as no surprise, very much centered on our planet Earth, and this is where all living creatures are being created. The Hindu version actually, you will find that in all three Bibles that we are aware of today, because you see that you have a god of creation, you have a god of death, and you have the god sustaining life. And if you read the Bhagavad Gita, which I'm doing at the moment, you will realize and recognize a lot of the features, a lot of the personalities, and a lot of the creation that we know today. In China, things are a little bit different. There, it is based on what we see with the sun, that there's only one sun. In the old days in their creation myths it was 10. When we look at the Eskimos, we see that it was also centered on Earth, and that giants were actually the cause of all life, and when the pieces were hacked off, they came to life underwater. If we look at the Greeks, we see that they have a function for each and every god, and one of them is also the god of creation. I found a very nice site who takes a little bit of a lighter side to the whole creation myth and looks at different ways and different religions and different continents, how they interpret their creation. I highly advise or recommend this site to anyone who wants to learn a little bit something about the different customs in different countries. Very well made. The one that definitely gets my thumbs up is the Japanese one, because the way that this guy tells it here, it is really great, resulting in the vomit, the urine and the feces god. And of course you arrive at the flying spaghetti monster creation myth, which I suppose is the most recent one and the one that holds the most truth, so to speak. So what we see is that all these myths have something very much in common. Another common factor is that all these gods are incredibly angry. They always threaten you with the worst possible punishment if you don't do as they say. Which one is your favorite god again? Go against the supposedly laid out rules, regulations and limitations, and you will suffer eternally. However, if you comply with all these, you will receive, well, actually here the religions differ depending on what region, what continent they actually came from. Here it's a different concept depending on where you go and where you look. We marvel at cell phones, OLED TVs and aspirin. But even though we know there are no demons, witches or supernatural capabilities amongst humans, there are people claiming their favorite supernatural entity created everything and still does. But which one is it? Do you just pick one from this list? What criteria do you apply? And why accept all modern amenities based on modern science, yet at the same time reject anything to do with cosmogony, abiogenesis and evolution, which is the case with most religions? Theists of all stripes are extremely fond of large numbers, showing with their stupid probability calculations how the creation without their favorite creator is totally out of the question. But how do they choose one? Do they go according to a hit list? Do they apply any objective criteria? Or is it really the pre-chosen one by their parents? So maybe there is a God along with hell and heaven. But why should there be? Anyway, it must be the fear of the first and the vision of the latter that causes people to carry on believing and thinking the way they do. Maybe it's simply the more comfortable way to go, or it's the more accepted view to have. Or is there more? Can there be more? Or is it as postulated in the Christian Bible, where Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 13, "When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." Muslims counter that Allah has 99 names, well, 100 if you count the Baha'i as Muslims, and this shows his supernatural divinity. Hindu gods have 330 million faces. Eat your hearts out, Muslims. So the way I see it, there is nothing objective about choosing a religion, as they are too similar, all based on an invisible being that resides outside of our senses and perceptions, yet is supposed to interact with our real life, not by some divine and supernatural manner, but by means of a very human invention, a book, or using the fallible means of communication humans use, language. My point is, why do you think your particular God is special? Thank you for your time and interest.